It is my 46th birthday. Today is June 3rd, 2023. I'm so blessed to be alive. So thankful to be alive. So today, here's my blog for my birthday blog. And it's called When I Quit Running from God, My Life Got Easier. How many of you have ever heard of the story Jonah from the Bible? Some would say it's a fable. As a Christian believer, I find it to be a story of learning to be obedient to the voice of God. Sometimes we go through things that we cause on our own. We realize we didn't have to go through those times, and we seek God for his help and for him to help us get out of trouble. And with God being God, he comes to our rescue. For those that may not know the story of Jonah, I'll give you a short synopsis. And you can read the book of Jonah in its entirety in the Bible. The story of Jonah is about a man that was chosen by God to preach. And because the people of the city were wicked, Jonah is afraid to preach to those people. And instead of obeying God, he runs and gets on the ship. And due to his disobedience, he ends up in the belly of a whale. And after time passes, he begs God to give him another chance to preach to the people, and God honors his request. I too was like Jonah. Now, God had told me to preach, but I ran away from my calling. I ran away for 25 years to be exact. What is my calling, you ask? It is to teach children in the school system. I am thankful that I am now obedient and walking in what God wants me to do. For years, things were not comfortable on my previous job. I was unhappy being there. There were false things that were said about me, and I was reprimanded for these things. There were many nights that I cried to my family, my friends, and I sought God for help. And to be honest, I never should have stayed as long as I did. I stayed because I had seniority. I stayed because I had a nice salary. I stayed because I built up to 4 weeks of vacation time. I stayed because I feared leaving. I was even afraid of leaving and going to another bank in my city. But just as Jonah, things got bad enough where I had to ask God to please help me. Please deliver me, and God did just that. God did pull Abraham on me. He took me to a foreign land, away from everything and everyone that I know. Now, the education system is a huge part of my lineage. I have aunts, a sister, a daughter, and several cousins that are in the education system. And for years, my aunts begged me to teach. They told me I would do great in education. Teaching was the furthest thing from my mind. And just as Jonah, I ran from it. I thought there was no way that I could teach. But as I look back and reflect on my life, I have been dealing with children in teaching in some capacity all my life. My first job was a babysitter. After that, I worked at different after-school programs. And before any of the children played or did activities, we did schoolwork, and I assisted with it. And when I was in high school, I tutored my friends in different classes. And in my uni years of banking, we went to different schools or apartment complexes to teach them about finances. And most of the time, my coworkers didn't even want to talk. They allowed me to do all the talking, and it didn't bother me one bit. But last June, God spoke to me and told me to do teaching as a career. And for all the reasons listed above, I didn't even blink when he said it. God saved me from my pit and gave me another chance. On July the 30th, 2022, my father loaded up my belongings in a U-Haul, and he brought me to my final destination of Kissimmee, Florida. A few days later, I was officially a teacher. I won't lie, I was nervous, I was scared. All I know for the majority of my adult career was banking. I had to learn something new all over, and I was worried about learning it. There were some days we sat in planning, and I was hoping and praying deep inside that my name wouldn't be called in those meetings. Most of the terminology was Greek to me. I compared my experiences to understanding a new language and knowing absolutely nothing about it. Honestly, some of those days, I was sitting in those meetings almost at the verge of tears because of my lack of knowledge. I am one that takes pride in knowing information. And for me to have to start back over And know nothing, it was hard for me. I held it together during planning, but on those particular nights, I cried at home with family, friends, and God. One day in prayer, God spoke to me and said for me to allow myself grace. I was being too hard on myself by setting up the hard expectations of trying to know it quickly. I had to realize I didn't learn banking in one day, and my years of knowledge was developed of years of being in banking. And as time passes, it would be the same with teaching. I just have to allow myself time. When I stopped, took a deep breath, things got easier for me. Day by day, things started clicking. And the day will come that I will know more and be more comfortable with my knowledge in teaching. Now, before any of my students stepped in my class, before the school year even began, I asked God for a few things. I said, Lord, please let my class be a room of love. Not all children will receive it at home, and not all children will receive it in other classrooms. I told God that I would be firm when needed because children need structure, but I also wanted to be fair and show love. With that approach, I knew some would hate me for the firmness, others would like me, and others would love me. Now, teaching is very different from banking. When I walked out the doors of the bank, I didn't take anything home with me. Whatever wasn't done at closing, it would be waiting on me the next day. But in teaching, a lot of more work is involved. And honestly, teaching is almost a 24-hour job. You're always planning, you're always grading, you're always thinking of ways to improve lessons, you're always in touch with parents, you're always wondering if your student ate that day, you're always wondering why a particular student has missed so many days. You're wondering how you can get through to that student that you know is smart, but he or she doesn't want his friends to know. You're wondering how the student is holding up knowing that the student has lost a parent or a sibling. A lot of these things are difficult for adults. So imagine a child going through these things each day and society tells them they have no voice. But that's why I was adamant that my students would know that Miss Long's room, or some of them say Miss, they just dropped off the Long, room 308 would be a place of safety, a place of love, and a room that their thoughts would be challenged. Now, before I even knew what a benchmark was, that's the Florida standards of what you're going to teach on a particular lesson. I knew how my students would start each day. I love motivational quotes, and I wanted to incorporate it into my teaching. And for the bell work and all year long, I posted a quote on the board each day. And depending on what my mood was, or what kind of quote they received that morning. To name a few, the topics on the quote would range from self-worth, love, positivity, pride on who you are, pride on your culture, cheating on assignments, and mental health. The students wrote their thoughts on what the quote meant to them. And by the end of the year, I had students that found quotes and wanted to share with me. And I put their quotes on the board and put their name of the student they contributed. They never knew when I would use it, so they would be excited seeing their name on the board with their quote. At the end of each day, the teachers had to display the bus schedule for the students in 7th period. By the end of the year, I had students that I taught earlier in the day and some that I didn't even teach to catch the bus in my room. Word got around about Miss Long, and the children knew that my heart was pure. And room 308 was safe and a loving place for all, and my prayers were answered. Each day, I went to work with peace. I had supervisors that supported me. I had coaches that helped me when I needed understanding on what the state of Florida wanted me to teach. I was excited about teaching children. I was excited about them gaining the desire to read. I was excited about seeing the ones that used to clown in class start to take class more seriously. I was happy when parents thanked me for taking the time and caring about their children. I didn't do it for the thanks. I did it because I want the best for all of my students. and the desire for them to be productive adults later in life. I was a blessing to the students, but they were a blessing to me. And my first year is over. I have a sense of accomplishment. This first year of teaching has been a blessing for me. I finally accepted my calling from God, and my life got easier. Happy 46th birthday to me. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Keep praying for me. Have a good day. Live life. Be blessed. Bless up. Peace, love, and soul. And remember, love yourself. Bye.